if we are taking a stand as an industry, what are governments doing that has corruption in their backyard, and what are other governments doing that are very strict in enforcing this type of legislation? And can we really change the world?
Welcome to the Shipping Podcast, where I meet interesting maritime professionals sharing their passion for the shipping industry and their everyday job. I am your host. My name is Lena Gothberg. Hello, Shipping Podcast listeners, and welcome to episode 112 with Cecilia Müller Torbrand, Program Director for the MACN Secretariat. That is Maritime Anti-Corruption Network, which is a leading industry initiative working against corruption in the maritime industry. Cecilia is a Swede working in Copenhagen, and she will be talking about how this network came about and has grown to include 30% of the world tonnage during the 8 years since it was founded. I hope you will enjoy our conversation and learn something new. I know that I did. Cecilia and I met at the World Maritime University in Malmö, early April, during the Empowering Women in the Maritime Community Conference. World Maritime University is a very well-known place for Cecilia, as she used to be lecturing there previously. So this is Cecilia Müller Torbrand for you. Welcome to the Shipping Podcast. Could you please introduce yourself?
Yes. Hi, Lena. Thank you so much for being here. My name is Cecilia Müller Torbrand, and I am the director for the Maritime Anti-Corruption Initiative called MACN. I am based in Copenhagen. I'm Swedish citizen, but I work out of Copenhagen and are head of this initiative.
So how did you come in contact with shipping from the beginning?
So I studied law at Lund University, and I was very passionate about environmental law. So I actually searched for a university that could deepen my knowledge within environmental law. And I found Copenhagen University be really good at that. And I needed to fill an extra class. So there was a class on maritime law. And I was like, yeah, that could be interesting. It's international. And the door of shipping kind of opened to me during that course. I was like, this is a fascinating international industry. So I ended up combining my thesis on environmental law and shipping. And everybody in Sweden told me, like, it's such a narrow subject. Are you sure you're going to find work in this industry? Like, I don't know. And then a position opened with Maersk. They needed a lawyer who had environmental interest and experience. So I applied. And as I had that very niched speciality, I got hired. So that was a very big opportunity to see shipping, working for Maersk, coming straight out of university. And I spent in the last 9 years working for Maersk in different positions.
Doing what?
So started with environmental law. I was the only woman who wasn't a PA or secretary in a very technical department. So my first task would kind of like interpret environmental law into practical enforcement. How would this actually be enforced in a company? I sat as an IMO industry advisor. And this was an amazing experience because I was straight into working with engineers and former captains and them helping me to understand how the law can work in practice and me trying to guide them on how the law should be interpreted. So that was a very good starting point of how to learn shipping. But you can also, after a few years, you learn that as a lawyer, you would never, ever become an expert because you need that practical insight on how pipes and how everything goes in order to fully understand. So that took me into, I wanted to see more part of the business, and I wanted to understand how you can connect environment, sustainability into how we do business. So that took me into a position in Maersk Line Sustainability Department, where I looked at everything from commodities and environment, and also started working on ethics and anti-corruption. And that was a subject that, it a bit away from where I started with environmental law. But on the other hand, it was all about improvements. And law is sometimes very negative. It's about enforcement. It's about criminal activities. And anti-corruption and environmental matters is very much about prevention. And that was really that was something that I thought was it was a positive aspect of a legal framework, right? So I started together with another colleague of mine. We started to implement Maersk Line's anti-corruption compliance program, and I was in charge of the ships, trying to understand what are the captains, what are they faced with out there, and how can we help them really truly enforce an anti-corruption policy.
And then you were recruited to MACN.
Yes. Then I actually started to think about it was actually my manager who said how we looked at collaborations in this area. And she raised the question in a small little forum up in Norway, could we gain by collaborating? And we wanted to do that because when you're out training seafarers and you have 60 captains in a room, they ask you, so what's competition doing about this? If I'm going to say no, why is everybody else saying yes? How can we take an industry approach to this? What's governments doing about this? If we are taking a stand as an industry, what are governments doing that has corruption in their backyard? And what are other governments doing that are very strict in enforcing this type of legislation? And can we really change the world? We've been sailing for X amount of years. Can we actually change something? It's always been like that. Those kind of arguments. It was like, we have to be able to face those, and we have to be able to have a good answer to these people who are out there 24/7 and being truly faced with these type of issues.
Could you give an example of an issue that you can be faced with?
Yes. So when government officials come on board, if you look at a ship and you look at the industry, shipping is quite exposed to corruption risk because the ship touches government officials in quite a numerous different ways. During inspections when they are being built, also inspections when they're being recycled, but also the very day-to-day operation. You have a ship going into the ports, it faces multiple government interaction in order to get your vessel cleared to be able to offload or unload cargo. And challenges, of course, depends where you operate in the world, but there can be 40 government officials coming on board a ship, checking the vessel multiple times during night. The captain knows that if he is being delayed, that may have a commercial consequence. So the stress for the seafarers and the crews going to some of these remote areas where you see a lot of corruption, it's become a workplace issue. So when you look at anti-corruption compliance in the shipping industry, I think it's really important you don't put a legal hat on. It's a workplace issue. It's something we have to deal with to ensure that our crew is safe and they like their job and they can perform their duties as they should.
So from there it started, the MACN?
Yes, so from there it started. And I was tasked for the first year to do something about this initiative. So we were 8 companies in our first meeting. And I spent a year trying to figure out what we can do in the industry. So we invited more companies, of course, but we also tried to seek experts from UN, Transparency International, really trying to understand how far can we take this. And that was in 2011. And today we are over 100 companies. We have approximately 30% of the world's tonnage. We have close to 80% of the container lines shipping container line alone. So we are really a leading industry initiative. And this is something that started by the industry themselves. So I think we should be very proud of that as an industry.
So where do you see the biggest challenges for the shipping industry when it comes to corruption in the world? Geography, it's what I think it is, or is it just prejudice from my side?
No, I think the shipping, if you look at the risk, they're not different than any other industry. So if you follow recognized risk ratings for corruption, such as Transparency International has a very recognized country risk rating, it is the same. We see challenges in West Africa, we see challenges in the Black Sea, but we also see challenges in Southeast Asia, we see it in South America. So you see corruption everywhere. But I think one of the biggest challenges we have in front of us in order to really eliminate this, any industry have to work together. So you have to work with your peers, because as long as the other people saying yes and you say no, you do face more challenges. So you have to build a business case for any industry that collectively is the right way forward. You need to dare work with governments. I think MACN has proven numerous times that we can open doors with governments when there is a problem, and they are willing to speak and engage and work with us. I think that's one of the myths where you think that you cannot talk about corruption or it's so sensitive. And it is, but every person you meet is proud of their country, and you find heroes in any country, and you work with them because if you have a good private-public partnership, you can make change. And we have been able to do that in numerous countries.
I think you had an example of where someone told you it can't be done, and it was made possible.
Any country we've been to, everybody has told us it can't be done. So we have collective action now in Nigeria, which was one of our first projects. We were only, I think, around 15, 20 companies, and everybody told us it can't be done. Today, we have an amazing local partner that helps us on a day-to-day basis, dealing with government officials, dealing with senior government. We interact directly with the Vice President's office in Nigeria, and we've been able to bring change on numerous barriers, such as making sure that the government officials have better written instructions on what they should and shouldn't do when they go on board the ships. Have a grievance mechanism in Nigeria where when you've been faced with an issue, the industry can actually complain into the Nigerian authorities, and we help them to investigate. Another good example is Argentina, where we had a very specific problem around the inspections of the tanks. Grain exports out of Argentina is a huge market. It's a very good trade for the Argentinian economy. And there were improper requests during the whole inspection. We did good stakeholder management, which means we engaged with authorities, with port agents, with local companies, with ship owners, with cargo owners on this agenda. We help to improve very operationally the process around these inspections. And today, companies report to us that they have seen 90% decrease of corrupt demands. And that is during a period of 4 years. So you always talk about everything take 10 to 15 years. But I think if you get the right stakeholders around to talk about the issues and address them jointly, we can have much quicker solutions than that.
So who do you usually talk to? Is it governments or is it the industry?
Both. You need both. We have a very active membership, and that's really important. With the companies we have in the membership now, as we really represent the industry. So that is a value proposition in itself when you knock on the door for governments, because we may sit as an industry and say governments are corrupt, but they're sitting on the other side and saying industry is corrupt. So by knocking on their door and saying, we have all these companies that believe you have an issue in your port operations, is very difficult for them to walk away from, because they also have an interest to make sure that trade flows in and out of a country is run efficiently, because that's also a benefit for their own economy, right? So working with industry and working with the government, and if needed, have a third party, if that is the UN or that is someone else, to help to facilitate that conversation, is definitely an option and a good way forward, particularly if you think it's sensitive, or particularly if you think if companies feel they might be exposed to retaliation. But the bigger we are, the less of a risk that will be, because we have an industry voice.
And how has it been received by the seafarers?
Yes. I really want to challenge the myth of, which is still very much in the industry, that if you pay, it's better for the seafarer. You just do whatever it takes, then, the seafarer exposed less stress or less harassment. And we see over and over again that is not true. Companies who have a very clean, straight anti-corruption policy, their seafarers, their front line has less issues, less harassment, less conflicts with the authorities. So protecting the seafarer by paying is not the right approach to this. And we get that confirmed by so many seafarers who say, we really welcome this initiative. Once we stand our ground, we don't get the hazard, we don't get the problem, because they know what our standpoint is. We don't sit and negotiate something hours after hour. We just say no, and it helps. And any company who is starting their journey, their compliance journey, and they think that no one is doing anything yet, every one of them has a captain who has done this by himself because he's so tired of getting demands for any type of everything from cash to cigarettes to soft drinks. Every company has a hero they've just stand their ground and it works. And the best thing you can do is find those captains, talk to them, make sure they teach their tips and tricks to the other captains, because if they can do it, they put so much faith in the rest of the crew that they can do the same.
I think it's impressive. How many people work for the MACN now?
So we are a secretariat that's based in Copenhagen. It's me, I work full-time. And then I have actually a handful of part-time employees. We are still run under an organization called Business for Social Responsibility. So MACN is an initiative under BSR, and BSR is a non-profit organization that works with a range of sustainability topics. So we're really strong in climate change and women's empowerment, and MACN is one of the biggest collaborative initiatives that BSRs manage as a secretariat. So it is me and it is my people that are based in Copenhagen. We are hiring another full-time manager right now that's going to focus on West Africa. And then we work with those, what I call our local heroes, those contractors that are working on the ground for MACN, helping us to open doors to authorities, take meetings with authorities when we can't be there. Those are the ones who know how to run a project to make sure that we have success and we don't blame and shame. We do it in the right way. It fits the culture. We address it in the right way. And those are really, seafarers and our local partners are really the ones that drive change in our network. So that is amazing to have those local people as well.
How do you see the future for shipping in general?
Well, shipping is a very competitive industry. Of course, with what we see in world trade today, we have challenges ahead of us. I think the golden years, I started going in shipping 2008, and everybody's been telling me, you've missed the golden years and they will never come back. And I think that's true. I think we have to be very mindful that the future is not going to look like yesterday. But 90% of the world trade is still on oceans, and shipping will be here now, and it will be here 200 years from now, because the world is just getting closer to each other, the countries. We are more citizens of the world than we are citizens of countries. And I think we have gotten used to the lifestyle that we have because of shipping. Any grocery commodities coming into our day-to-day life as a consumer, that need and that would not go away. So shipping will definitely have a role to play. But I think we have to be smart. We have to invest in shipping. We have to invest in both environmentally better solutions, and we have to invest in making ports more efficient and linking ports to the infrastructure. If you invest only in the ports and the road system or the railways doesn't work, then that country will not grow and trade will not grow and shipping will not grow. So I think we have to look at more solutions that goes beyond the ocean part, and we have to partner with more stakeholders to make the whole transport solution more sustainable and more efficient.
And there are so many exciting things happening right now in our industry. So, we see so many developments, and even if they tell you that you missed the golden age, there might be a I don't know, a rocket age in front of us or a diamond age.
Yes.
I don't know. So did you ever have a role model growing up?
Yes, my mother. My mother was born in 1945, so she's always been this extremely independent woman. She traveled as a nurse when she was quite young to work in Algeria, and she's always been very like, you can do anything. I grew up mostly with her, so she was very supportive of me and very driven that anyone can do anything. So that has really followed me, and I hope that I'll give that to my children as well. But finding that independence is really important in yourself. And I think that's something which any woman should have as a key message to herself, that you can do anything and anything is possible, and find your passion and find a role model that can help you to make that happen.
Because then you can be head of MACN.
Yes, and you can.
And you can start a shipping podcast.
Yes,
if you just believe in yourself.
Exactly.
We have spent 2 days together now at the World Maritime University at the Empowering Women in the Maritime Community Conference. Yes. And we are, I think we are pepped up to our ears now. What do you like? How did you find it, the conference here?
I think it's really important that we have these conferences, and especially gathering women from all across the world to see what leadership means for a woman.
Yeah, it was 300 people, it was sold out.
Yes. I must say that I also miss the men in this conversation.
Yes.
I think it's really important that we are not only focusing on what women should do more of, but also thinking on how do we really get gender equality into our workplace. That means anything from what's happening in women's day-to-day life, in their homes, who leaves the children to daycare, do they have support, who cooks, who cleans, who does, do you share the burden? Because if you share the burden at home, you have more energy going to work, you have more energy to invest in yourself. And I think there are still a lot of women out there that think they can do it all. And that is something we have to work with. But the best thing to do that is also to challenge the men on how do you support your spouse to make sure that the dreams of both adults in a relationship can actually come true. I also want to push governments, because I'm fortunate to come from Sweden, where we have a lot of these social benefits, childcare, paternity leave on both sides. But in order to make this successful, there has to be a government service for women to strive also after they've gotten a family. Because you see a lot of ambitious women, and when they hit 30 to 35 and family might come into the picture, it is difficult to get everything to fit together. And we need both the men and the government to help these women to progress.
I speak to some of my peers in my age, and they are usually sort of managers of something. And they say, well, it's equally, you have to plan, because the men wants to be on paternity leave as well. So it's so much more planning when it comes to people are on leave to take care of their children. And I think the men wants even more time now. So I think that is great. And I also see the men in the young generation, they don't want to continue working in an industry where it's only men, because they see the benefit of also having mixed and diverse working groups. So I think we're doing this for them as well. Speaking about diversity, we're doing it also for the young men of this industry and for the future. And for us to look a little bit better, to raise the profile, to show the world that we are an exciting industry. And this is where the future lay for a lot of people who wants to do cool things.
Yes, for sure. I mean, we do it for any industry gains by having both men and women presented in any level. So everything from frontline, if you speak to seafarer, all the way up to management. I do think if you look at the broader perspective here, I think a valuable contribution to the industry would be to have more women in management positions, because that's also an inspiration to the front line. Seafarers, they may talk to women on shore, they may see a woman doing a career. That can also increase the recruitment on seafarers. So I think it's really important to look at women to have a position in all levels, because you find role models and inspiration in different parts or in different positions.
I agree. So who do you think I should speak to the next? Who will be my next guest on the Shipping Podcast?
Well, I think for the theme for this year, by empowering women, I think it's really valuable that you see that message from the IMO. So I hope the Secretary General will be your next guest, speaking on how women's empowerment in the community how we can make that happen.
Soon I will have to do this, because so many people is wishing to hear his view on that. So I will try and do that. I don't know how, but I will hopefully get him in front of a microphone. Thank you, Cecilia. Best of luck. And thank you for taking the time. Thank you, Cecilia. You say that every company has a hero when it comes to anti-corruption behavior. I want to say that every company also have a podcast guest in the makings. Someone that people enjoy listening to and want to know more about. And you are one of them, Cecilia. I'm so happy that I got to know you. We have a lot of things in common, and I think we can both become heroes in the larger sense of the word. Someone reminded me the other day that I am only 4 episodes away from celebrating 4 years as a podcaster. I had almost forgotten. So many things have happened since I started in the summer of 2015. I have met so many interesting and fascinating people who have agreed to sit down with me and my microphone, and I have enjoyed every minute of it. I have learned so many new things, and I have expanded my network to include so many more knowledgeable and friendly people with fascinating jobs who are willing to share with me and share with you. I received a text the other day through LinkedIn from a listener that wanted to give me a shout out. He wrote, "I find your podcast extremely interesting and you provide extremely valuable information. I just wanted to reach out and connect. Thank you for putting on such a great podcast." As you can understand, that made my day. I don't know about you. Maybe you often get shout-outs like that. Or I feel humble and grateful when I receive messages like that. It makes me stop to think that what I do matters to others, especially a day when I have been disappointed by something or someone and is thinking about quitting the entire thing. I met a ship owner the other day who said to me, "Lena, I don't know why you do it, but where would we be without you?" I don't think he meant the podcast, since I very much doubt that he listens to any podcast, let alone the shipping podcast. But what he was referring to was more the passion that I feel for the maritime industry and the people in it, and why I think it's worth to walk that extra mile. What do you do for the industry at large? Which extra mile are you walking? I would really like to hear from you. Drop me an email at hello@shippingpodcast.com and let me know. There might be something there that I want to dig a little bit deeper into. Thank you for listening to this episode. You can read more about Cecilia in the show notes to the podcast, where I also put some links if you want to have a look at Transparency International and find out more about corruption and where in the world that is a problem. I am going to North Shipping next week, so I will have to leave you now. I have some great interviews in my pipeline. So, until the next time, from me to you, over and out. Thank you for listening to the Shipping Podcast. Don't forget to tell everyone that you meet that there is a shipping podcast available and that they should download it and listen to the maritime professionals who are sharing their passion for the shipping industry.